Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to Treasures Galore. This video is going to be about the key word. And I know that this has been a very popular subject in the chase for many years, since 2014. So on Terry Scant, on February 4th, 2014, was the 6 questions. It says, "It is interesting to know that a great number of people are out there searching. Many are giving serious thought to the clues in my poem, but only a few are in tight focus with a word that is key. The treasure may be discovered sooner than I anticipated." So he's telling us that, a lot of people are thinking about the clues in his poem. There's only a few that are in tight focus. They're focusing on a word that is key to figuring this out. The treasure may be discovered sooner than I anticipated. So by these people focusing on this word, he's thinking that, you know what? They're focused on this word. They're going to solve this thing pretty quick. So I always hear people say, I think the key word is contentment. He even says the key word is contentment. That's what it is. Or the key word is imagination. Okay. You know, I do believe you have to have imagination to solve this thing. But how the hell are those two words going to help anyone get closer to the treasure chest? How? If you're content with your life, well, if you're content with your life, why are you searching for money? You know what I mean? Or thrills. So it just seems weird to me. So word that is key. So Calazar's released a video recently saying that Forrest Fenn clarified that the keyword is in the poem. Now, I believe a lot of searchers are thinking, well, duh. Of course it's in the poem. Those are the instructions to the treasure chest. And if those are the instructions and directions to the treasure chest, then, which is made up of words, then probably that key word is going to be in that poem. But most importantly, what I think is that I think it is a word that is in the poem, but is also used in the book. And so when that word comes up in that certain sentence or phrase or even story, you know to pay attention that this is a clue or a hint that will help you with the clues. Now, in my last video, I talked about running through fields and barbed wire fences, and someone said, "Ha, well, you even said it was in Texas. It was in Texas and where he, ran through the field. So, are you saying that you believe that you should search for the treasure chest in Texas?" No, I do not. I believe it is in the Rocky Mountains. I believe that he uses these stories to hide little snippets that are important, like running through fields. I think that's super important. Now, does he, and like I showed in my last video, he uses the same characteristics with many stories throughout. You know what I mean? So there's a whole bunch of like similar things, like barbed wire fences, running through fields, tall grass, and all this stuff like that. So that's these reoccurring themes that are going through is what I think is super important, right? Super important. Reoccurring themes, and that's why multiple forms of his writing is so important. So you have multiple sources to compare to, and especially when you know that there's hints, because what we really only know is that there's hints in The Thrill of the Chase and in Too Far to Walk. He has told us that. Now, he said that there is one unintentional clue, but he has said that there are clues, multiple clues in Too Far to Walk that will help a person out. Now, to my knowledge, I do not believe he has said that there are clues in Once Upon a While. Now, Douglas Preston says that. Forrest Fenn doesn't deny it. But I do not believe Forrest Fenn has ever said that. Now, correct me if I am wrong. So we know these two books have hints or clues in them. So we got to think logically. Now, how can we use a word, one word, or maybe two words? So I believe it might be two words to help us get closer to the treasure chest and make this treasure hunt end sooner. by focusing on this word. Now, we got to think practical. How? How can we use this? Well, there is a word that's going to help you with almost all of the clues. And it's in the book. And Alan Kelly hit the nail on the head last week in the comments. The key word's home, guys. It's home. That's it. It's home. There's also another word that I think is really important and I think is key, and I think it's cold. I think it's home and it's cold. Now, wait a second. You don't think it's warm or brown? Nope. I think it's home and that's it. And cold. Those are the only two words. Those are the key words. So if you watched my videos and paid attention, you probably realize that by now is that there's been 3 or 4 clues that are based on the word home that's throughout the book. And I'm going to give you a one that I haven't told you about. And it's going to be the answers to Heavy Loads and Water High. Now wait a second. I did put out a video of Heavy Loads and Water High being Hebgen Lake and Quake Lake. Heavy Loads Water High. Because he describes it in the books. So there's double meanings, I believe. I believe that the treasure chest is hidden near that area, and that's why he did it. But I also believe that this is him explaining exactly what Heavy Loads and Water High is, and exactly what it is for you, and what you have to do with this area. This is where the treasure chest is, so I believe this is super important. And I'm gonna make so many videos, and I'm gonna talk about the water crossing law in Montana, because there's been a lot of talk about it lately, and I think it's really important. And I've mentioned that, I mentioned that last year. I think that law is really important, and I really want to go into that because I think this is going to apply. But anyways, okay. So key word is home. Key word home, right? Okay. So let me explain why. So, and then I'm gonna reference my other 2 videos and go over those 2. But so if you have your Thrill of the Chase books out, okay, this is like every time you watch this video, you should act like you're in church, right? You should bring your Thrill of the Chase book. You should bring your Too Far to Walk book. You should have tabs open to look at, scrapbooks. You should have all your stuff ready to go out in front of you so you can see it and read it for yourself. And I think that's really important. And I think it's really important to read the book. Okay, so get out your Thrill of the Chase books. Go to the chapter Buffalo Cowboys. It's page 65. Okay? So I want you to turn to the next page, and I think this is keep it on page 65. This is the answers to Heavy Loads and Water High. Now you got to use your imagination when you're reading these stories. Okay? I've come up with a solve that fits the map perfectly. That's all of these, that puts all these stories, all together. You know what I mean? And it fit, and I think it's super awesome. And I'm going to show you what I think Heavy Loads and Water High is. So Buffalo Cowboys, page 65. So it says, Skippy had an old car with no top. It had one big seat in the front, and that's all. One day, when a buffalo wandered out of Yellowstone Park and started tearing up fences. Okay, so there's a little thing about fences, right? Kind of interesting. Donnie thought we should go out and round it up. So after loading Skippy's heavy boat anchor rope in the car, the 3 of us went looking for the buffalo. We found it about 7 miles west of town in a large sagebrush flat that had stands of pine trees everywhere. He was a big bull, and we started calling him Cody. Okay, so interesting stuff here. 7 miles from town. Last video, you noticed that he was 7 miles from Reese Air Force Base. That was the distance between Reese Air Force Base and Lubbock, I believe. The buffalo was tearing up fences, which is really interesting because he hops over fences and he trips over fences. And then he named the buffalo Cody, which is really interesting because Buffalo Bill, Cody, Wyoming, that whole shindig. But what's really interesting is that he says after loading Skippy's heavy boat anchor rope in the car, so he uses the 2 words load and heavy loads. He loaded Skippy's heavy boat anchor rope in the car. So that might be a hint to a lake or something like that, as far as a boat, the heavy loads on the on the lake as they're carrying stuff. Forrest Fenn didn't mention the heavy loads on Heavy and Lake of him carrying the logs across the lake, and that he referred that as a heavy load. So is this referring to a lake? Maybe. I think something different. Okay, so what happens is that they dare Forrest to go throw this rope throw this rope on this buffalo and tie it to the car, and they get into the car. And so he goes behind a tree, which, if you watch my videos, I think it's interesting that he's always hiding behind a tree, right? He's always behind a tree or by a tree or something like that. It's always interesting, right? So it landed on Cody's head and wrapped around his horns, and he slowly inched the rope tight and retreated about 50 feet to the car. Now, 50 is a really common number for distances in the thrill of the chase, which I will bring up later. Okay, so the buffalo got agitated and stuff like that, and then I will start reading on page 66. Then all of a sudden, Cody decided on a change of venue and started running. It wasn't a fast run because he was pulling a car loaded with 3 guys who were about to learn the folly of their adventure. Okay, so Cody is loaded with carrying these guys. He's loaded, running through this field. Okay, so he's loaded, running through this field. Kind of sounds like Forrest Fenn with his backpack loaded with gold, right? Maybe running through a field. When Cody panicked and started snorting as he ran, we suddenly realized buffalo bills are easier to grab a hold of than they are to turn loose of. I thought about bailing out of the car, and probably would have if I had had my shoes on. There's another interesting topic about him not having his shoes on all the time. There's a lot of these reoccurring themes, right? But you gotta apply it somehow. It's one thing to see it, it's another thing to apply it, right? So apply. Skippy was steering, trying to dodge trees and stay behind Cody, because if the car turned away, something unfunny would probably happen to us. Okay, here's the really important part. Finally, we dropped about a foot straight down into a stream of fast-moving water. When we got to the other when we got to the other side, the car stopped with a terrible jolt. Skippy and Donnie flew over the dashboard, and I was thrown onto the front seat. The engine was in the water, and the fan was throwing sprays all over the place and making noises like a helicopter. Okay, so you have this buffalo carrying this car loaded through this field with 3 guys, and then he gets to this small stream and crosses this small stream, and right on the other side, abruptly, is where they stop. Okay? And right when they abruptly stop with the heavy load of the car, what happens is it creates water high. And water high is the engine was in the water and the fan was throwing sprays all over the place and making noises like a helicopter. There's your water high. It flinging the water up. And it also brings up another thing, right, too, is that, it reminds me of the helicopter in Vietnam about the waterfall, and the water would fall down on the rocks, heavy loads as the rocks below, water high, the waterfall, him being in the helicopter there for, staying for 5 minutes, Terry Scant with Marble Gaze, so that's really interesting, too, because that it kind of hints back to heavy loads and water high, too, with, My War for Me. But here is the most important part, and this is how you use the key word in determining this is a hint. So at the very end of the chapter it says, I lost my shoes in the ordeal, Skippy lost his car, and Donnie lost his credibility. The long walk home was wet and cold. And we didn't realize until later how much fun it had been. Okay, so I lost my shoes in the ordeal. Skippy lost his car, and Donnie lost his credibility. Sorry, I don't know why I keep calling Skippy Scoppy or whatever. But it says, the long walk home was wet and cold. Those are the 2 key words, I believe. The long walk home was wet and cold. when you're walking back to the home of Brown or below it, you're going to be cold, and that's because you have to cross this a, a stream of fast moving water. That's what I believe. I believe that is what the heavy loads in water high is. You're not going to have you're not going to paddle up a fast moving creek. There is going to be no paddle up it. Just heavy loads and water high. You got to go right across it. When you walk back to your car, you're going to be wet and cold. Two key words, I believe. Wet and cold. Okay? So now let's go to page 57. Okay. So we're going to go back to the videos I made before. Page 57, the long ride home. Okay, so there's the key word, right? Right in the title of the chapter, the long ride home. Okay? And I believe when the keyword home is used, it's synonymous for home of Brown. Really firmly believe that, and that's how you use this word to determine where you're at in the poem, right? Because if you're running away from home and you're describing running through a field after you run away from home, you know what I mean? You know that that's what you're looking for after the home of Brown. So after the home of Brown, below it, there's going to be a field, right? But here's the answer to how far too far to walk is using the key word in the chapter, The Long Ride Home. So on page 56, it says, in Wyoming, between Shoshone and Casper, we had some kind of slight misunderstanding, and I told him just to stop the dumb car and let me out. There's that dumb word again, right? He uses the word dumb a lot. Okay, continue to read. To my utter amazement, he did, and then drove away. Listen, guys. It was on a long, straight stretch of road with no cars or people around anywhere. Okay, nobody around. Kind of sounds like when he hit the treasure chest, guys. Interesting. It's funny how he throws that in there. Okay, so continue reading. It was so far away, I don't think they even had coyotes out there. So far away, man. I was so far away. I don't even think they had coyotes out there. Weird. Okay, so he tells us how far away is, but it's funny because he gives us a distance. He doesn't tell us a distance. He gives it to us by telling he was in between these two towns. Now, if you look between Shoshone and Casper, it is almost exactly 100 miles between those two towns. So if he's in the middle and so far away between those two towns, he's 50 miles away. The long ride home. Now listen, it gets better. So it says, I had no money, no coat, and no shoes. I remember sitting down on the road for about an hour to consider my lot in life and ponder if anything was left of my future. Now he mentions an hour. He mentions an hour ride, like an hour a lot, an hour break, an hour this, an hour that, and to travel about 60 miles, 50 miles, 60 miles, traveling at a regular speed, in the mountains, it's probably going to take you about an hour to get there, 50, 60 miles, about an hour, depending on it, a lot of different factors. But where I think it takes about an hour. So anyways, the long ride home. There it is. There's the key word. He doesn't have shoes on again, which is really weird. But I continue to read on page 57. No cars passed, and it was getting cold. So I started walking on the paved road in my socks. There it is, cold again. So he's so far away, and it started getting cold. You are brave. Your effort will be worth the cold. So it started getting cold when he was walking so far away on the paved road in his socks. After another hour or so off in the far distance, he uses that word far once again. I saw Skippy coming back for me. I didn't think he would, and neither of us said a word. I just crawled in and we drove off. Okay? Far. He uses the word far. It was a far distance. I was so far away, coyotes weren't around here. I was walking. Boy, I started getting cold. It was in between these two towns, which is 100 miles. You gotta think about how each of these stories and each line and each word goes with the poem. and how it could apply. Now, all these videos, could I be wrong? Absolutely. There's a really good chance I'm wrong, but there's also a really good chance that I have something, but I haven't really correctly interpreted it. Right? I'm giving you my interpretation. I'm showing you it and giving you my interpretation. Probably wrong on my interpretation, but what I'm showing you, I firmly believe is really important. You know, whether or not I'm taking that information and using it correctly, now that's a different story, right? But what I'm showing you, there's no denying that there's these recurring things, and obviously these are really important, and we need to use them. So, keyword home, far distance. He gives us the distance between Shoshone and Casper, 50 miles. So far away. Uses these words, keywords, right? Cold. The long ride home. So uses the word cold and home. Both are keywords, right? Okay, so go to page 21 now. And we're just going to stay in the thrill of the chase today. We have plenty to talk about in this book. Okay, page 21, guys, which is, no place for biddies. Like I said in my last video, the reoccurring theme about running away from home. Home is the key word, like in Too Far to Walk, chapter 9, my mom and me, he was running away from home, going to the dance. No place for biddies. He'd run away from home, but he's not allowed to cross the street, okay? So I deducted that, if we're using this key word that's home, and he's not allowed to cross the street, then, using that key word, I conducted that we're supposed to cross the street. That no place for the meek. I believe there's two things to each, clue, like I said before. And I believe that one of them for no place is the meek is cross the street. And I believe that no place for the biddies gives us that answer by using the keyword home. He'd run away from home, but he's not allowed to cross the street. So no place for biddies directly resembles no place for the meek. So if he's running away from home, but he's not allowed to cross the street, then that is the place. So a place for the meek. Biddy means biddable. Biddable, and it means chicken. Why wouldn't the chicken cross the street? So, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes into that. Check out my older video, No Place for the Meek. But he'd run away from home. So using this key word to determine another clue. You're using this one word to determine this is important. So there's 3 clues that I've told just now that use the word home. Let's go to page 29. It's really important, guys. And if you have a better keyword that goes through the book and answers it and gives you clues, I'd really want to know. I really want to know, because I have not seen one word that is more awesome than mine. And that sounds horrible, but show me. If you guys have it, show me. Because I'm really interested, right? I'm showing you mine. Show me yours. Okay, page 29. There's mentioning, I'm going to start going in a kind of different direction. He does mention cold, and some of these I'm not going to give you an answer to a clue what I think it is. Like, this is, too far to walk. But I'm going to show you it and say, yeah, I think this is important. But there's reasons why he's doing these words, right? And you'll find out in my later videos why I think these, when he uses these key words and why it's important. But I'll explain later. So page 29, Bessie and me. One cold morning when Bessie was further in the barn. Now, he always describes these weathers. It's interesting. He's very descriptive, right? It was raining. It was cold that day. No, it was warm. Now, I think when he uses cold, it's in the poem. I believe that's a keyword. Home. In the poem. Keyword. Okay, page 29. So now go to page 33. My Spanish toy factory. When I walked the mile to school. Now there's another one. Walking the mile to school. Another theme, right? So when I walked the mile to school on cold mornings, my path took me right past the pie factory on First and French. So again, cold. I was walking to school on a cold morning, passing the pie factory. Cold. Walking from home to school. 2 key words. Okay, so let's go to page 38 now, guys. Okay, so another one of him describing warm or cold. Page 39. When Mr. District Attorney was over at 8 o'clock, the kids had to start for bed, and that ritual was set in concrete. On really cold nights, Father lit a gas stove in the sitting room because that's where the night radio was, and the whole family huddled around it. The rest of the house remained cold. Now, back when I first started that, I thought that really sounded like a kava, or like a place where the Indians would hang out with their fire. Don't know if that's called a kava or not, but it sounds like something Indianish. But again, on a cold night, the whole house remained cold. Interesting. Let's go to page 42. Or 41, excuse me. Sometimes, when it wasn't too cold, I'd get even with my father for switching me by jumping out of the window by my bed and walking down to the cemetery, which was just a block north of our house. Okay, so here's again. It wasn't too cold, but it was cold. It wasn't too cold. I'd get even with my father, again, by leaving his house, leaving the home of Brown, walking down to the cemetery. Interesting. So again, it wasn't too cold. Talking cold, right? And then it's interesting, like in Gypsy Magic, I'll bring that up. It says when the weather was warm, in the springtime when the weather was warm. And he's always kind of giving these descriptions of warmth. You know what I mean? Like a big one, really big one describing warmth is, a lot of people use this for New Mexico, and rightfully so. But they use it for Taos, New Mexico. Let me find it really quick. I should have brought Teachers with Ropes up first. But it says, Olga was a delightful woman with a warm and giving heart. And then it says, I felt a serene sense of warmth. And then later it says it looks cold and foreboding. The bitterness of cold remains long after the sweetness of a sentimental moment is forgotten. So cold and warm a lot in this chapter, right? Interesting. And it's just an interesting chapter that this lady's dying of cancer, which Forrest Fenn had. She knew it. She was planning it. And this is where she wanted to be buried. That's kind of how Forrest Fenn was doing the treasure chest, right? That's where he wanted to die. And, just kind of, this story really mirrors Fenn, and then he uses the T's, and it's just a really interesting story. But just again, using the words that I think are interesting. Okay, so page 111, Teachers with Ropes, and I think this is interesting. And this has been widely talked about. Widely talked about. But, it's the answer to the line in the poem, 2, worth the cold. Now, I also brought up that I think there's a water crossing and a small little stream. Okay, I think that from that chapter and using the key word, but I also think there's another double meaning, is that it'll be worth the cold, and that's just the treasure chest, right? They couldn't understand why it was cold to the touch when it was in a warm room, rather than tell them the brawn felt cold to the touch because their hands were warm. Cold to the touch. It was bronze. When you touch it, it's cold and your hands are warm. Interesting. That's the answer to your brave. Yeah. To the cold. And then another thing too. He goes out of his way to tell him that the bronze felt cold to the touch because their hands were warm, right? So, worth the cold. When you touch the bronze, it'll be cold. So wear gloves, right? It'll be worth the cold. Grab it, or maybe wear a backpack. But he also talks about bronze again. He talks about bronze is a non-ferrous metal, meaning it won't rust or deteriorate in any way. He had to bring that up, right? But he explains why that's important. It's because all my bells were cast in that metal so I could bury them. so they wouldn't rust or deteriorate. He made it in bronze, which is the exact same thing that the treasure chest is made out of, so he could bury it. Now, to me, that makes a pretty good case that the chest is buried. I hope not, but just a good case, right? So the word that is key. There's it. There it again. Cold. Cold to the touch. Now there's some in other books and stuff like that, and a lot of different other similar themes and stuff like that I'm not mentioning. But I think this kind of gets away the point of using a key word to figure out clues in the poem. Using cold and home, and using those and figuring out other clues and figuring out where you're at in the poem with that. So, oh, I ran away from home, so you're after it, or before home, or I got about halfway home. So it's describing where you're at in the poem from the word home, which is kind of in the middle of the poem, I guess. Metaphorically, I guess, with clues, almost. Number 4, there's 9. So he uses these words so you can help. Now, of course, I have not found the treasure chest because, like he has said, the most important thing, right, is to find out the starting point. Now, I firmly believe I had that. Man, it fit. I went, and I failed. So here I am, sharing my thoughts to you guys. So tell me what you guys think. The key word: home, cold. That's how you use it. Now let me know if you guys have a different word that you think is better, and that's how you unlock this. I don't know. I know some of you are probably hoping for some anagram and it'd tell you exactly where it was or what state it was and it'd break this thing loose. But I don't think that's kind of how he designed this. I think he just designed it multi-layered like this, multi-clues, where they would fit anywhere. I mean, it's the vaguest thing in the world, the poem. Vague. Super vague. If you didn't have the book or anything like that, or, if you didn't have anything like that to help you, shit, you're, good luck. If you're using strictly the poem, good luck. There's thousands upon thousands of places they could fit depending on your interpretation of the clues. Thousands. And a lot of people make them fit in their mind anyways, regardless if they fit or not. So, use the book, guys. I think home and cold are the key. I think those are the answers to those clues. And I think that is really important. I think these 2 videos that I released are really important. I still have a lot of good stuff. One of the biggest ones I want to release, that House Husband Diaries. I'll tell you what, man. He keeps putting out videos left and right of of a lot of stuff that I want to put out, which is awesome. Check out his videos. I keep repeating that, but I like him. I like him a lot. So, anyways, guys, I'm gonna get off here. Hope you guys like it. Give me some feedback. I think it's really important. Let me know. What's your keyword? Email me. I'm giving you mine. I had a couple people like, well, I was like, well, email me, dude. Oh, I'll talk to you. He's like, I'm not gonna give up my stuff to you. I'm like, I don't want your stuff, man. Like I said, I'm not fishing. I had some people ask me, are you just trying to fish for people? You're saying, oh, you're not in the chase, but then you really are, and you're just like, so people open up to you. No, I'm out of the chase, dude. I'm not. My confirmation bias on these clues that I'm telling everyone is still super strong. I still believe I'm right. You know what I mean? I still believe I'm still in the right area, which is crazy. Even if I'm, if I was right, I'd be crazy. But anyways, that's it, guys. Thank you for subscribing. 560 something. It'd be awesome. I really want to keep growing. I'm gonna keep putting out these videos and probably gonna start going live once I get a chance to. It's kind of hard with I have 3 boys and 2 companies and all this other stuff, so life's a bit hectic. But subscribe because I'm going to make a lot more of these videos that I think are interesting, and I think that you are going to think they're interesting. So click that subscribe button and get ready for some awesome videos. Okay, guys. Thank you. We'll see you later.